what I want everybody to understand is that root cause healthcare is not normal and will change the world, as we're going to discuss. But what really caught my attention was the quote on your page of what you're suggesting for healthcare from the Washington Post. And I want to read it because it needs to be highlighted, and we all need to understand how we can change this. So the quote that Marianne has, it's from the Washington Post, and it was recently published, and it says, after decades of progress, life expectancy, long regarded as a singular benchmark of a nation's success, peaked in 2014 at 78.9 years. It then drifted downward, even before the coronavirus pandemic, and it's an extreme manifestation of an underlying deterioration of health and a failure of our health system to respond. And the article goes on to say chronic conditions thrive in a sink or swim culture, with the US government spending far less than peer countries on preventative medicine and social welfare generally. The calamity of chronic disease is a not so silent pandemic. With that in mind, can you please help us understand why and where we have gotten so lost with our current healthcare system?
Well, first of all, we do have a higher level of chronic illness in the United States than in any other advanced democracy. And all of those advanced democracies, as that quote points out, do think in terms of preventative measures. You and I come from a kind of thinking with our work where we understand that health is not the absence of sickness. Sickness is the absence of health. You can't just not take care of your body, not take care of your lifestyle, not take care of your nutrition and other factors involved in proactively creating health. And then when the almost inevitable sickness arises, use external remedies to seek to suppress or eradicate symptoms. That's the old allopathic model that for millions of people has been dissolved long and long ago. But let's look at what we have. We have carcinogens in our food that they do not have in other advanced democracies. You can look at a bottle of ketchup in the United States versus a bottle of ketchup in Canada or Europe, for instance. There are all kinds of carcinogens that increase the shelf life of a product that are allowed here that in other countries would not be. 46% of our urban wells contain PFAS in our water, these forever chemicals, and obviously the toxins in our air. Then you add to that a lifestyle which is so dominated for the majority of people by constant and chronic economic stress and anxiety. Now, all of those things put together, and they are a toxic brew out of which sickness is almost inevitable on some level of physical breakdown. Then you add to that the fact that we're the only advanced democracy that does not have universal health care. Now, what is all of this about? What's the common denominator? The common denominator is the fact that in all of these instances, you're talking about a situation where short-term profit maximization for some huge corporate entity is placed above the safety and the health and the well-being of people. The crisis is that our government, because of the undue influence financially of those forces, actually enables those forces rather than doing what its purported job is, which is to advocate for the American people. So none of this should surprise anyone. And it would have been and was in some cases predicted very long ago. So when we talk about, last time that I ran for president, when I said on the debate stage, we don't have a healthcare system, we have a sickness care system. Because even the conversation of how we're going to treat sickness is limited to this old mechanistic way of thinking where you're only asking, how do we treat the symptoms rather than how do we address the root causes? In almost every other area of our lives, people get that now. It's a very 21st century thing. The mindset of the 20th century is different than the mindset of the 21st, just like the 19th was different than the 20th. The 20th century mindset was very mechanistic. The world is a machine. You have a problem, you just tweak the pieces of the machine. Clearly, that has left us in many ways where we are. The 21st century mindset, far more holistic, far more whole person, recognizes the issue of consciousness. So that when we talk about something like economic stress, we understand the role that this plays in the creation and the continuation of sickness. So one of the last nuts we need to crack is politics, because politics, not being of this new thinking, has made a lot of us go, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with it." And now a lot of us are going, except that they're killing us all. The high
Right.
rates of sickness and the asthma in our children and toxins in our air and the poisons in our water and our food. And I think what's happening now is people are recognizing that we are paying far too high a price for the fact that our politics is stuck in this let's treat the symptom and ignore the cause type of mindset, because it is becoming increasingly unsustainable. As you said, our life expectancy is lower. And it's not even just that we're living less long, the quality of our lives. Mindy, people's lives are
Yeah.
falling apart. I don't need to tell you that.
Yeah.
Just the level of chronic anxiety, whether it's that you can't survive on just one job. 62% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. The majority of people can't afford a $1,000 unexpected expenditure. That kind of chronic anxiety right there, whether it's your physical
Yeah.
health or your
Crazy.
mental health. And this situation won't stop unless we fundamentally stop it. It's built into the status quo at this time. So if we keep voting for the status quo, nothing fundamental in any of that is going to change.